Welcome everyone, this is Polyp Needles and you're listening to LOTRO Players News, where we take a look at Jesus and LOTRO and here at LOTRO Players. And this week we have with us Sanswinda
Hello.
and Krister.
Hello.
Hello there, Krister and Sans. And we are now on the week before a major release in LOTRO. But before we do that, let's head on into the news, where we actually have some more. Surprise, surprise! We had another borrower around. Yes, this is the one that was originally intended for the week before. So we had borrower number 3, where there were a number of tweaks to delvings. I'll go over delvings next week. I'm not going to worry about going over tweaks they're making to delvings right now. But on to skirmishes. They hooked up cosmetic rewards for the Karas Gelebrin skirmish. I think what they mean here is that some of the chests will occasionally drop cosmetics. I have not seen any cosmetics drop when I was doing my testing in there, but I think that's what that's supposed to mean in there. I guess we'll find out more when things come out. As for character generation, players who begin their adventure in Swanfleet will now have their default home location set to Mossward. Yes, that's a good idea. Yes, because having your hobbit who is starting out in Mossward have their default milestone in Little Delving is a mite bit inconvenient.
I could see that being pretty inconvenient. Maybe not as bad as if you're a stout axe and it reverts you to Mordor, but that would still be pretty inconvenient to be reverted to the Shire.
Actually, this is a question. Where is the default milestone location for a stout? I would presume it's actually in Erluine somewhere.
I think they fixed it. But it used to be that if you didn't reset it when you got out of the instance, it would send you back to that jail where you started. And I found this out. I found this out on a Durin's Day adventure when my stout axe died and ended up back in a cell in Mordor. And I was very confused about how to get back out, and I ended up having to port to a house to get out. Because there was no way out. I was just locked in jail in Mordor again. So I think they fixed it after that.
I'm sure.
But I
hope
haven't
so.
tested it because, well, I guess because I haven't died on the stout axe who hasn't set their milestone since then. But it was pretty jarring. So hopefully they fixed it. I think there was a patch note that said they fixed it a while back. But I think it now defaults to Thorns Hall. We'd have to test, though.
Wait, Thorns Hall or the jail in Thorns Hall?
I think it defaults to outside Thorns Hall.
Okay, that's better. That's better than jail.
Yeah, that's a lot better than jail. And also, the character selection music has changed. In addition to a new theme, if you spend enough time in the character selection, you'll then be able to hear previous themes. So they first play the previous, the new theme that they have in there. Then after that, then they'll loop to, I think it's the original one that they have after that. Then after that, then I would presumably then they'll go to the one that they added later on when they were doing Mordor on theirs. So it goes between various themes that you have in there. If you manage to spend that much time in the character selection screen, because usually you're probably not in there long enough to notice the difference. But anyway, there is a new character selection set of music, and I had to change the music volume on my system so that I could be able to hear the new music when I was trying it out on Vorer the other day. Now, as for Bjornings, Beast Form will now advance skill deeds while dual wielding.
Was it not? I mean,
Yeah, I'm just saying here is that, all right, how did that bug happen?
Right? I don't have any idea. Maybe it was
Yes.
a bullroarer bug only? I don't know.
No, I don't think
I mean, it
so.
might be a regular bug.
Well,
I don't usually dual wield with my Bjorning.
yeah.
I usually have a two-handed weapon, so I don't know.
All right. Let's then head into burglars. Reduce the damage of purge corruption considerably. Increase the damage of exposed throat considerably. So if you want to get rid of corruptions, you use purge corruption. If you want to do damage, you use exposed throat instead.
That's what it sounds like, yeah.
Yes. Single target double-edged strike and flashing blade skills now correctly benefit from single target word of power traceries on their first attack.
Good.
Fix an issue with a few skills not appropriately benefiting from positional damage. Well, I'm sure the burglar
That
would
will
be
be
happy
helpful.
about that. AoE versions of Flashing Blades and Double-Edged Strike are now circular AoEs centered on your target, rather than an arc which is based on the target's position and orientation.
Interesting. Okay.
Alright. And trick removal skills will now properly advance resistance is futile. Now, as for champions, champions now earn the skill Fear Nothing at level 18, and I hear champions cheering all over the place.
Hooray! That is so much better than like 48 or whatever it was.
I think it was 46, but anyway, it
was still very late.
It was ridiculous, yes. So, yes. I don't understand how it spent so long being at such a high level, because 18 is a much more reasonable level at which to earn that skill.
Much more reasonable.
Yes. Especially when you consider that you start doing things like instances and skirmishes and all that stuff at level 20. So nice to have a skill like that at level 20, especially like for the Great Barrow.
I'll say that would be really nice before the Ostringroth instance too, right?
Yeah, be nice for the Ostergroth instance, for the Great Barrow, and the upcoming Black Grave. I can't.
And any
because
trips
Black
to the
Grave
Barrow
has a lot of
Downs.
those things.
Yeah, it's going to be very nice.
It'll be very nice, yes. Then, on Guardians, Shield, Taunt, and Vexing Blow no longer advance Grim Challenge. And the Guardian Tracery Guardian's War duration and block chance is now listed in the Rivendell Word of Mastery Guardian Barter profile for all levels and rarities. I guess it wasn't being listed properly?
Well, being listed properly is good.
Hunters! Distracting shot skills will no longer advance quick shot deeds.
Aww. Probably a good thing.
Yes.
I don't usually use distracting shot anyway, but
I know distracting shot tends to be an underutilized skill on my hunter, I must admit on that.
I mean, it's a nice skill. I just don't use it a lot.
You're too busy trying to kill stuff to want to miss someone.
Usually, yeah.
Upshot will now advance ranged critical hit deeds.
Excellent.
And Swift Bow no longer advances rapid fire.
That's probably good. I didn't have any idea it was.
Okay. Now, for the Lore Masters, Ring of Fire no longer advances Tactically Adept. Since I don't use Ring of Fire,
and I'm not sure what Tactically Adept requires. But it probably makes sense.
Well, I don't know. I will just have to go with it. I go blue line, so I don't think you get Ring of Fire and blue line. For minstrels,
I think it's a red line.
Yeah, it's probably very deep in the red line. Because I use Lightning Storm, and Lightning Storm is, I think, about halfway down the red line tree. I think I set up that when I go into the second tree, I tend to set up that second tree so that I eventually get Lightning Storm. For Minstrels, Perfect Ending now advances Enduring Morale, Life Singer, Power of Song. For Wardens, Battle Memory version of several skills will now properly advance skill deeds. I don't use Battle Memory enough to ever notice that.
So was that more like battle memory loss?
Well, it would remember everything else about the skill. It just didn't, but since I guess it was thinking it was a battle memory trigger instead of a skill trigger, I guess so I guess from the point of view of what deed is connected to, I guess it is memory loss.
See?
Yes. Okay, monster play. Creep, out of combat morale, and power regen have been improved.
Yay!
Updated values of most creep traits, which gives statistical rating. Updated corruption trait set bonuses. Updated stats awarded by blessings. No blessings grant negative stat values.
Yay!
And in general, stats values from blessings have increased.
It'd be pretty bad if you got a blessing and it's like, you are now blessed with negative 300 strength or something. Like, you have negative 200 will.
Oh well. Floating objects at Orc Camp should no longer be floating.
Boring.
War Leader Purge, Reaver Resilience, Aquilon's brand, Lynathal's insignia of the Captain General should now all apply their immunity effects after dispelling combat state effects. And Map to Gransfoot skills are back to a 1-minute timer.
Yes! That's much needed.
Yes, I think there were a lot of complaints about the change from that. Flags at the bridges have been removed. They will return someday. Adjusted the health and power of one more defender on the creep side.
Cool.
Instant kill spots surrounding the swapping defeat circles is extended to account for increased skill ranges.
In other words, some people were killing the NPCs that
Yeah,
used to kill people, probably.
I suspect that's the case. And access to the deep removed from the bases of Dargazog and Ostringdir. And that's it on the creep side. As for quests and instances, resolved a bug where text from the silent one was not displaying in German.
It was very silent.
Yeah.
Well, why would it display for anybody? I mean,
well, yes. I mean, one would think.
It's silent, so.
Gundabad Stonejaws fixed a typo for the quest item Exposed Crystal. And let's see. And there's some tweaks on various missions, some various new missions in there, which would be Bulwer only. Hooked up cosmetic rewards for the Grey Fear instance. And the 6-player instance, Sarkvorn Black Grave, was available for its first test. They had only the first 2 bosses, in the sense it's not scheduled for this release. The Black Grave is scheduled for a couple of weeks from now, probably in 34.1, I guess, is when they're probably hoping to get that out on there. So I did try that out and ran the first 2 bosses, since that's all that was available. Now, I ran the 1-player version, not the 6-player versions. So I didn't see the full glory of all the weird things in there. And surprise, surprise, it involves a great number of dead. I know that the shocked that a location attached to the Barrow Downs and called the Black Grave will involve dead.
I know. If the first thing that conjures up in my mind is daycare.
I don't even want to think about what type of daycare you've had, you've interacted with. Yes. General changes. Good About Craft Recipe Selection Box and Good About Heraldry Craft Selection Box rewards are now openable, selectable on Legendary Worlds. Please note the recipes inside still create level 131 traceries, which means that they're not going to be much good to you until you get up to, until the server gets up to that level. So I have no idea what that was all about. Fixed errors appearing in tooltips for Fall Festival War Seed appearances, tattered feathers of the Harbinger, and several other items. And new adventurers loot box gear for level 140 characters. It will now scale from 470 to 472. And that's for the update on there. And that's it for the new items in the patch notes. Of course, next week I'll have the joy of reading the entire update 34
No.
notes.
No.
Oh, no. Okay, you're right. I'm not going to promise to do that again because I remember what happened last time.
Thank you kindly for not promising that.
Okay, yes, okay. Right. We'll at least go through the highlights next week, that's for sure. Yeah, I came that close to making a promise I really didn't want to do again.
That's kind of almost worse than the promise you made last time, which was that you were going to read all of the creep notes. This was like all of the notes. I'm glad that you thought through that, Pine.
Yeah. Then let's have a reminder that they are currently expecting to release Update 34 on Tuesday, November 15th. So that'll be 3 days from the recording on here, or the day after that gets posted for the podcast version of this. So Tuesday, November 15th, barring, of course, any nasty things happening that goes haywire. But I think we've already had our big nasty thing happen, and that was, of course, the moves that they suddenly had over November 1st and all. So yes, update 34 there. They did have a little sneak peek type thing on the Friday stream this week where they were interviewing various people involved in the project, talking about the world building that was involved in there and quests and stuff like that. So they had Orion there. They had, let's see. Oh, they had Severlin there and the world builder there. So they had all three of those on there going through scenario. Yes. So they had scenario, they had Severlin, and they had Orion there talking about their views on the various things that they were coming out into the next update. And speaking of scenario, he has these casual strolls that he does every month or so, where he goes through various zones in there. He decided that this week he did a casual stroll to Arnor. So it's going through all various places all over Arnor and going over the big historical highlights all throughout, because he did go through the individual zones a while back. But now that we have the Yonder Shire up, and now we're coming up with Swanfleet and Cardolan, now we have the vast majority of Arnor is now implemented in the game. So he decided just to go back and have a look at the highlights, started up at Fornos and eventually reaching down into the Cardolan region. And there is a YouTube video up, and there's a link to that in the show notes. And now, some good news that I think a lot of people will like, and that is that world transfers are once again available.
Yeah, but where do they transfer you to?
Where do they transfer?
I heard
you?
it was a Costco. Never mind. I'm just sorry. My coffee's not working. I guess.
Laughing.
I think I just lost. I was beginning to wonder. I was just wondering if you're thinking that they're going to transfer us to Mars or something. You know?
Well, I mean, presumably it means between worlds, but the way that it reads, it's open for interpretation if you don't know the context.
Yeah, what if your character suddenly ends up in the Star Wars MMO? You know, that'd be pretty crazy.
Well, seeing that that's for a completely different game developer, I suspect it's unlikely there'll be world transfers to the Star Wars universe.
Well, I can admit it'd be more difficult, but
now that does not rule out world transfers to Dungeons and Dragons worlds, though.
Whoa.
Well, all right. I suspect the class system would be incompatible between the two games. Perhaps not. Let's head into our store sales. And Krister, what's on sale this week?
Well, this week you can find your Shadowfax and get 25% off select War Steeds and mounts, writing skills, select War Steed cosmetics, and movement speed buffs. The coupon this week is for a free Max Morale and Power Scroll ×5. Ooh. And the coupon code is Max Morale Power, all one word. And all of that is good through November 17th.
Through November 17th. Then you could use them in order to be ready for the
Max your morale and power.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's time to buff up.
We should maybe point out, though, that just because you could buy War Steeds doesn't mean you can buy them at, like, level 5.
Well, most War Steeds being sold right now are lemons. Let's just face
it. Just pointing out. They could
can't
have
even
more
trample
money if they would
me.
sell War Steeds to level 5 characters.
That'd
and let
be
us
awesome.
ride them.
That'd be like putting a Lamborghini in the hands of a 7-year-old. So
okay, fine, but it would be fun. Writing skills, though, are pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I remember someone very recently having trouble getting through Mordor while riding a War Steed.
Well, I mean, I didn't say that the War Steeds didn't have problems. I just said it would be fun to have them earlier.
Let's head to our weekend gaming. Krister, what were you up to?
Well, this was a relatively quiet week. I'm just going to chalk it up to the holiday. And last night we got half of our raid together. Nobody else showed up, and we were all like, "Nah, maybe we'll just make this a bye week." So that's what we did.
What? If you had half your raid, why didn't you just run a 6-player instance?
Well, no, it was literally everybody was like, I kind of had a bad week, and
okay.
yeah. So that's why I believe Finn came and joined you guys, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we just kind of talked for a few minutes, and then we were done. So it was a slow week in the LOTRO rating for us, but what we committed to is next week we're going to get back on track. This week I pulled something off the shelf that I hadn't played in a long time, and that is No Man's Sky, and was given another shot, and that was pretty. It's been pretty cool. And then I picked up a game based on the Back Rooms called Escape the Back Rooms, and that's been pretty fun too. So kind of just a quiet week and kind of minimal gaming, but of course maximum Krister. So That'll never change. Sans, what did you get up to?
Well, thanks to the holiday, I was able to make the field trip and had fun war-steeding around Mordor and Farkel. Finally, if it is right, there were some problems in Mordor. Namely that I got almost to my destination and then got slingshotted all the way back to where I started and had to ride back again, arriving about the same time as those who rode on regular steeds because of the rubber band. But it was fun. And war-steeded around Mordor and Forkel and got my heirloom of the snowman on the field trip. So that was pretty fun. And several other pieces of gear with Light of Arundel. So my character is no longer surrounded by an ominous purple cloud everywhere she goes, which is kind of cool.
Okay.
And
You're just surrounded by people like
was
Pine
kinda
Leaf,
cool
which is
too.
kind of ominous, right?
Well, usually not. He's got the totally non-ominous leafy feet going. But
That's exactly the people you should be paying attention to. No.
one thing I noticed, though, as I was trying to catch up after rubber banding back, is that there was this, lovely line of traps to follow. I was like, oh, bright red trap. Oh, I see another one in the distance. Go that way. And sure enough, at the end of those, there was a pine leaf, a pine trap on foot, fighting off the last of a group of enemies who presumably had jumped him. So, I think Finn was there too. And it was kind of fun too, messing a little bit with our guardian's head. He's like, every time I touch one of these guys, they just melt. And I know it's not me. And we were just laughing because we were all ranged. So by the time he gets up there and whacks them, they're dead.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He actually, it sounds like he actually got to touch them. That's usually not the case. The tank, it's dead well before the tank gets there, or the melees get there,
That's because it usually takes me 5 minutes to pull out my bow.
So, yeah, that was pretty good. And I feel like I respect my minstrel reasonably well, though I think I have to do it again soon, so oh well. And then in Ark, I set up a desert base on the Lost Island map with cinders, and that was pretty fun. We tamed some things, and we had some fun. And then I've been running around in Pokemon Sword some, and I think I'm near the end of the story arc in one of my saves. Because I've just completed the semifinals of the championships. So, yeah, that was pretty cool. How was your week, Pineleaf?
All right, I'll begin with my higher level characters, and I was spending a bit of time doing skirmishes with two things in mind. One of them was to try to finish up those deeds for the various encounters in there, trying to get the Skirmisher Middle Earth title on those legible characters, my Lore Master and my Hunter, and those are the two main ones that I was working on that matter. And the other thing is, I was starting to get back into the research so that I will be able to make a skirmish guide for the new skirmish. I'm hoping to have that out by the end of the month, that we could have a Piney skirmish guide for the Duma Karis Galebrin. We'll see how that works out on that. So I'm just doing the prep work on that. So that's one thing I was doing on Bulver, was doing the prep research for that, getting a feel for the skirmish, and trying to find out as much as I need to know. And just remember that things could change between now and the release. So I have to, of course, do more research when the actual release does happen in there. But I think I'm gotten along pretty well on the research on there and have an outline for what I need to do. Now, on my lower level Langible Hunter, I participated in an assault on Heligrod. So we did that right after last week's episode on there, where we were running 70-ish characters. We had think around 16 for this. So we split into 2 groups to do the first 3 wings. Then we combined for the 4th wing. And we went in there. All right, we ran it around 75-ish, I think, is what we ran it as. Actually, 73. So I think most of our people were around 73. So I think we ran around 73. So we ran it at 73. We had a couple of 79s and also had some 71s. So we're running all through the 70s. We figured, all right, that'll be a reasonable challenge for it because we had only, I think, about 16 out of the 24. So we had 2/3 of the raid that was called for. And we tore that dragon into pieces. I thought, what? Oh, guess we didn't realize that the new LIs, the dragon wasn't quite prepared for new LIs in the hands of 70-ish characters. Yeah, the dragon didn't know what hit it. It just whack, 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 dead.
That must have been satisfying.
Yeah, it was quite satisfying, especially considering some of the bad times we've had with that dragon in the past. So that's one less dragon that we have to worry about. Then this week on Friday Night Fights, we had 6 140s, and someone thought, how about we go and get revenge on the Throne of Dread Terror? Alright, the Throne of Dread Terror is a raid, but it's a fixed level raid at 105, so it was going in there. But it was a notoriously tough raid in there, and I don't think I've ever completed it before. But we did manage to finish it without too many deaths. Of course, the fact that there were any deaths at all when you have a group of 140s when you have a group of 140s doing a 105 raid. But I guess it shows you how much tougher raids are when you're going in. Anyway, we managed to finish that up, and now I've seen what the Throne of Dread Terror is like. And that was my week in gaming this week. So, we currently have 16 supporters on Patreon. And if you'd like to join this illustrious raid of players and help support LOTRO players, you go to the Nature's page to support the Players Alliance on Patreon. Your money will be used for podcast hosting, website hosting, and to pay for our live shows. The Players Alliance has an email slot where you could send us something at podcast@LoTroPlayers.com. We also have Twitter, the Players Alliance at Players Ally, LOTRO Players at LOTRO Players, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, Sensewinda at Sensewinda, and Krister at Entropy Engine 1. The Players Alliance has 2 shows on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. USC time. We have DDO Players News, and on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. USC time, we have LOTRO Players News. You can join us for our shows at LOTROPlayers.com/live. And that's all for tonight. And this is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.